Hey everybody, before we get started, I need to apologize because I set my mic settings a little bit different for this episode, and it is pretty terrible to listen to, but because it was such a good and long episode that I had with Isaac, I decided not to re-record, but I will have a change for every single episode following. I will not make that mistake again, I promise, but I hope you enjoy as much as you can of the next hour-long episode about Star Wars. Again, really sorry. Hope you can deal with it just this one time. Enjoy the episode.
Another thing that I think Disney did pretty good with was, and we'll talk about this whenever we talk about Clone Wars, but season 7 of Clone Wars, the latter half of it was awesome. But that's a discussion for another time.
I would say that's because they had a ball lobbed to them and they actually hit it out of the park instead of all the other balls that were lobbed to them, and they were like, "What's a ball?"
I'm gonna give you a nice, easy meatball. Here you go. Huh? Dodgeball? Okay. Swish. Did I do it right?
It, catches it and runs down the field. Down.
Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk to me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so simple?
World! I could do this all day.
Are you watching closely?
Do you have a script ready to go yet of your intros so you know how to do them?
I've been getting better.
I haven't been in calls very recently, so I wouldn't know.
I'm sorry. I am not an entertainer. I just like to yap a lot with my friends.
You're an animator. You're not an entertainer. You're an
I'm meant to be melancholy, distraught, working late hours, trying to get someone's hair to look right in animation and not an animator. Usually something just happens and I just take that as the intro, like this one. I kind of want to just take this as the intro just because I'm lazy and I want to avoid actually doing an intro now. You roast me for my intro skills and then
Welcome
you give me an intro.
Cheers.
Yeah. Hey, put that Packers thing away. No, put that garbage away. Just kidding. Welcome everybody to the One Night Film Podcast.
Man, I'm thirsty.
I am too, but I don't need to.
I didn't know you were starting. You're on a delay.
I have my One Night Film Podcast sticker on my water bottle, not anything else that's garbage.
Well, this is green screen. Your one-eyed green screen. The logo on there.
I'll learn to do intros when you come out and talk.
Fine, I'll shut up. Let's get this intro done.
No, it's already done. Moving on.
Okay, fine. I guess we're talking about Star Wars shows today.
We are talking about Star Wars shows.
Heck yeah. I guess it's the one thing I'm getting right recently.
So we're doing Star Wars shows today. We've talked about all of the other trilogies. Isaac is my Star Wars man, so I call him up whenever there's Star Wars content to talk
Star Wars
about.
nerd.
No, because we've done
the very first Star Wars episode.
Yeah, well, you want to know what's funny? Will, I'm calling you out. After we recorded like an hour-long episode talking about his Star Wars dead, he says, "You know what? I'm not really that much of a Star Wars guy." I'm like, what? So I'm glad I have you on now, Isaac.
Well, what's really funny was I was listening to that episode. I didn't know that episode was going to come out. So I saw it came out and I was like, that's weird. I didn't know there was somebody else in the group that loved Star Wars. I thought they would have joined in with me. And then I hop in to my first recording session for my first episode. And what does Seth tell me other than, "Oh yeah, I didn't know why we didn't include you in Is Star Wars Dead?" It's like, well, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I don't know why. Again, we really came into how we were formatting the episodes later, probably more into the double-digit episodes. But the Star Wars episode was number 3. Episode number 3 was Is Star Wars Dead? And I don't really remember what was going on with behind the scenes, but I was still trying to get the crew together, and Will said he was down to do it. And thank you, Will, for a good episode.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I was listening to it and I agreed with a lot of what he said. So thanks, Will.
I'm sure we could do a revisit now that's been a year and a half. Maybe we'll save it for like the 2-year anniversary and do kind of a 2 years looking back. Soon after that was your Andor episode, which we spent a long time talking about Andor because it was really good. We did 2 parts of that. We did all 3 of the trilogies. And now we're talking about the Disney TV shows for Star Wars, not Rebels and Clone Wars, not because they're not Disney, but because I feel like they can be their own episode and there's just so much to cover. Plus, I haven't watched them. So once I get through them, we'll do that. But I started watching these Star Wars shows when Disney Plus came out. I remember Disney Plus was announced in 2019, I believe, or at least knew it was coming out. And one of the first shows they were advertising was The Mandalorian. Yeah. And I remember being really excited because I was like, yeah, I think that could be really cool, the next Star Wars installment. I think I had Disney Plus just long enough to watch The Mandalorian, and then I left. But we can start there with The Mandalorian because it was the first Disney TV show to kind of set the stage for what we thought would be a decent couple series. But as we'll come to find out, they kind of fall short in a lot of areas. So,
well, I don't know if I don't think the first season of Mandalorian fell super short.
Not at all.
Again, I think that a good number of Star Wars fans were kind of on the hype train about it. It's been years since we've gotten a new Star Wars TV show, and suddenly they were coming out with one that had a Mandalorian who we knew very little about other than what we've seen in Clone Wars and what has been reduced basically to the Legends area of Star Wars now. So it was cool to have that show come out and take a little bit of a look into it.
Yeah, it was definitely leaning into what I've been very critical of for Disney in making everything a TV show. I think The Mandalorian season 1 was above average. I was very interested in the volume and how they filmed it with the LEDs and Unreal 5 for the environment. That made it very tech savvy. Very cool.
The background stuff for Mandalorian was shot in Unreal Engine 5?
You didn't know this?
No. I knew they did it on like the giant wraparound.
Okay, maybe it's not Unreal 5. It was Unreal Engine. I don't know what the process of Unreal 5 was, but yes, they advertised it as being able to adjust the environment very quickly. That was the invention of the volume, and I remember, at least to my memory, that it was built in Unreal 5. So one thing that the volume was very useful for is reflections, because everything is actually there. Now, it's not going to be perfect. I think a lot of times they still do replacements for the backgrounds just to make it look that much better. Kind of like my green screen right now. But here you're going to see if they want to move a rock, they're just going to move. They just have to go into the computer program, I believe Unreal Engine 5, and do that.
It's Unreal Engine 4.
Okay, it's Unreal Engine is the point.
Regardless, I didn't know that it was Unreal Engine.
Unreal 5 just took another leap. They used the volume, and that's what interested me. The reflections of Mando's helmet, I believe, were purposeful, as opposed to something like Boba Fett or Jango Fett that kind of had a matte look to the helmets, and probably because I didn't want to reflect green in the prequels. But when Mando's helmet is shiny, you can absolutely see the reflections of the volume around him, and that just made for a cool immersive experience that looks like it was filmed on location, but it wasn't.
I don't like it if you compare it to a practical set. I feel like a practical set looks so much better, but the volume is cool, and I think it's a very unique way of getting over the problem, especially during COVID and quarantine, of like travel restrictions and stuff. I think that was a very unique way of doing it, and I think it worked really well for its intended purpose. Again, in my opinion, I prefer a real set like Andor, and I think Book of Boba Fett too had a real set, but I do think the volume is also very, very good.
Yeah, it has its uses. People think that it's the future of filmmaking, and I'm like, it has its uses. The Mandalorian has always felt enclosed and like a very small space all the time. There's very few outdoor shots compared to Andor, which filmed on location in Norway, and that was one of the most beautiful location was the mountains with where they were training down in the valley with all the sheep things, and that was so beautiful. And you couldn't get that in a volume because it's also natural lighting. How many times have you watched Andor?
Dude, I won't lie. Like, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I rewatched Andor, and I rewatched the Eye of Valdani episode like 3 or 4 times. It looks so good.
I know. The Mandalorian also introduced the biggest cash grab in the history of cash grabs, and it was a little green action figured plush doll that moved, and people wanted him all the time. The Baby Yoda took over the internet, and people needed more Baby Yoda, and that was the start of the end, I believe.
Well, I think that Baby Yoda may be like the most popular selling item or figurine in Star Wars other than a droid. I can't think of anything other than that, than like a BB-8 or an R2-D2 that would even come close.
I would still say Baby Yoda trumps the droids. The amount of
Well, yeah. No, so Baby Yoda does 100% trump the droids. I'm just saying, like, in terms of like figurines and what's the word I'm looking for? Not props, but like actual characters. There you go, characters. Look at that. But in terms of characters, I agree. Baby Yoda is probably top. What I was referring to is like a non-droid. I can't even think of anything that would even come close. I was using droids because I feel like they would be the second most popular thing to sell.
at the end of the day, most movies are there to sell toys. The toy industry will make you so much money outside of the movie. If you can get a piece like Baby Yoda to be made in so many different forms. Like there's toys, there's baby clothes, there's adult clothes, there's so many different. It's just iconic, and it became a meme very quickly, especially when it got into, I believe, later in season 1 where he's like drinking the coffee or the tea, and that became a meme in and of itself. So it was a good decision, but it went over the edge, and we'll talk about that when we get kind of to season 2 and 3 of it. I also want to bring up the way how certain characters can act without a face. I think we've talked before that maybe it was in the Ant-Man episode or the MCU episode, but having nanotech for everything in most superhero movies is now growing old. It was really cool when Iron Man could do it in Infinity War and Endgame because there were still limitations to it, but then everyone got it. And even some characters with helmets, like Master Chief, still removed them very, very often so that you could see the person's expression. But what Pedro Pascal did, or his body double or whoever, made the mask a part of his character. Well, they wrote it to be a part of his character. And then he acted in a way that he never had to remove his mask until it was dramatic enough and part of the story, and not just, oh, let's see his face so we can see him.
Yes, I do love the way in which Pedro Pascal played, and it was written that it seemed like such a huge deal that even the thought of getting that helmet taken off was something that he was willing to kill over, basically, to kill or be killed over. I will say something in terms of your Halo reference with Master Chief. I haven't played very much of Halo. I think I have played the opening mission of one game once, but I have read some of the books. And from what I understand, Master Chief is never supposed to take his helmet off either.
What's the point of Master Chief?
So, yeah. So, anyway, that probably doesn't need to be even in the episode, but I just wanted to throw that in there. But yes, I do.
No, I'll keep it.
But in terms of Pedro Pascal taking the helmet off, it was also kind of an enigma. He was an enigma because we knew who it was, but I didn't know who Pedro Pascal was before that.
Exactly.
So
that was my experience. I had never heard of Pedro Pascal before The Mandalorian, and halfway through the series or halfway through season 1, I looked him up to be like, oh, that's who it is. And now he's Daddy Pedro for everyone on the internet.
but I mean, it's like I didn't know what he looked like. So I had my own image of who it was under the helmet, and so watching the helmet get taken off, I mean, it was basically a face reveal. It was a celebrity face reveal, was what it seemed like, and it was like that's what he looks like.
I think other examples, even within the universe, Darth Vader is kind of the epitome of acting with a mask on. That is his character. And even other droids in how they can't emote. That's kind of been a Star Wars thing. How do you make the battle droids, C-3PO and others, even R2-D2, who doesn't have a face, how do you make them act so that they're emoting in a different way? Whereas the default these days with Marvel, with Halo, is just, it's more of a selling point if you can put someone's face in it. And it's so, just the whole Halo thing. I know the fans have gotten mad at it. I never played Halo, but I know that that's a thing. To just ignore the entire concept of what the character is supposed to be is so frustrating. And writing something like The Mandalorian, where it is part of his character to either have the mask on, to always have the mask on, is a lot better than something that doesn't mean anything. Now, of course, you can wear a helmet, a mask. If you're taking it off in the middle of the battle, like I saw a lot in Ant-Man, Quantumania, it's useless. What makes it worse is the materializing. There's a whole video that I'll link in the description that I saw of bring back real masks, real helmets, because like think about, I don't know if you've seen Ant-Man 1 versus Ant-Man Quantumania.
I haven't seen Quantumania, no.
Okay, so they have the nanotech. Almost every time they look and talk to each other, it goes back, and then they go and fight, and then it goes over again. When I think about Ant-Man 1, he has an actual suit. Like he's given the helmet and the jumpsuit, and then and the gloves. Like that's what's given to him in the jail cell, and then he has to fit all of it on, put the helmet on, and shrink down before the guards get there. That's the beauty of real suits. And just having it at your disposal with a tap on your necklace, it's unless it plays part of the story like it did in Infinity War or in Black Panther, that makes sense, but it's just become too commonplace. And The Mandalorian started off doing that really well.
Well, and that was one of the things about the Mandalorian was in the past we had seen Mandalorians so often with their helmets off. I know we're not going to talk about Clone Wars or Rebels, but Mandalorians feature prominently in a couple of episodes and a couple of arcs in those shows, and we see them all the time with helmets off. They fight with helmets on and they can walk around with helmets on, but often they're with helmets off. And so having a Mandalorian with his helmet constantly on and the cult that he's with, it was weird to people who have never seen it, I think, and it was also weird to people who had seen it because they were like, this isn't normal Mandalorian stuff, or is it? This might be normal Mandalorian stuff, and what we may have seen has been a weird. It was that weird mix of what actually is and what actually isn't.
And then they kind of explored that even in season 3 about the Mandalorian cult, 2 and 3, when it came to, forgot her name, the Blue Mandalorian and her squad. Bo-Katan kind of being an offshoot of the Mandalorians, and then Mando taking off his own helmet, and that whole arc. It was kind of dumb in season 3, but it was still part of the story.
Yeah, she's not an offshoot of Mandalorians. She's still one of the houses of Mandalore. She's a part of the Kree's house. It's their house has been dishonored, basically. I mean, they're still technically an important part, but they're not Death Watch level, where they've been ostracized to an entire moon. And I think Disney is probably just trying to play it up to the point of, we're going to have a huge coming battle, which, by the way, I think they're trying to pull a Marvel with Star Wars, which ticks me off, where they've got all of these different series that they're making around the same time period. Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and they're all just going to tie it into one huge crossover show or movie, and they're going to make it seem like, man, look at this is so cool. When, I might be in the minority with this. I want a broad variety of stuff. I love Andor. I love that time period. It's such a unique time period. The crossover phase. Andor and Obi-Wan. It's a cool time period to be in. Yeah, we can have some stuff after the new trilogy. Give me some stuff before the Old Republic. Give me some stuff during the Old Republic. I want a broad variety of TV shows. I don't want 3 or 4 TV shows all within the same time period where you're going to have what I assume will likely be some big bad fight at the end and everybody comes together. Again, it just feels like they had a formula that worked once with Infinity War and Endgame, and now they're just copying and pasting it to everything else.
What exactly happened in Mandalorian season 2? Because that was when Ahsoka first arrived, and I think he was kind of deciding towards the end if he should drop Grogu off. Moff Gideon was the first one. Oh, it was the Darksaber, because then it ended with the Luke Skywalker cameo. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, season 1 ended with Moff Gideon cutting his way through his down TIE fighter with the Darksaber. Season 2 was Gideon chasing down Grogu. Boba Fett arrives, and then they're on Gideon's Star Destroyer, and we have the mysterious Jedi that shows up that turns out to be a really bad CG Luke Skywalker, when it could have been so many other options.
My first question: who would you have picked to be the cameo Jedi?
Quinlan Voss in a heartbeat.
Okay. Was he even in the prequels, or was he just in Clone Wars and the comics and the other books?
He appeared in one arc of the Clone Wars, and he had another arc devoted to him and Ventress relationship that never actually made it to the screen, but was published in a canon book called Dark Disciple, and he is an absolute beast. This is completely off topic, but he essentially was a Jedi, and before everybody got every single force power ever, he had the unique force ability of touching something and being able to feel the impression of the previous people who had touched it. So like he could touch a piece of armor and he could feel what had happened previously in it. He could feel like if the owner got shot and died, he could feel that coming from them. Psychometry, I think it was called. Anyway, He was sent to assassinate Count Dooku by the Jedi Council. Count Dooku turns him to the dark side, wherein he's called Admiral Enigma. I don't know if that will ever come up in Star Wars ever again, but really cool. And then Obi-Wan and Anakin go and rescue him with the help of Boba Fett and Embo and a couple other bounty hunters, and they rescue him from Count Dooku, and they rehabilitate him, and all seems fine and dandy, only to learn that secretly Quinlan Vos is still working for Count Dooku, and then he defects back to Count Dooku, and then Asajj Ventress shows up and is like, oh my gosh, I love you so much, and Quinlan Vos goes, all right, fine, I love you too, and then becomes a Jedi again. They were chasing Count Dooku on Christophsis. Asajj Ventress was supposed to die. It was Asajj, Ahsoka, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Quinlan Vos were all chasing Count Dooku, and Count Dooku decided right before he got away he was going to shoot some electricity, like that. He's going to shoot some electricity at Quinlan right before he scampered off and disappeared. And Asajj Ventress threw herself in front of it, and she died, and Count Dooku escaped. So she's never supposed to show up in anything else. Don't get me wrong, I love her showing up, but I kind of like the way that she was supposed to have died. Anyway, Quinlan Vos in a heartbeat. That's who I would have preferred showed up. Yes, Seth, go ahead.
So was that a Clone Wars episode, or is that a book that was kind of canon and kind of not?
So that was if I remember rightly, that was like a 3-episode arc. That was supposed to be a 3-episode arc for Clone Wars, written by George Lucas's daughter. It never made it to the animation process. Like, they had the storyboard and everything set out for it. It just never made it to the animation process. I think it was in the second half of the 6th season of Clone Wars that was cut. And then they turned it into a book that is canon, technically.
Does it contradict things that happened in the Clone Wars TV show?
No, it contradicts things that are happening currently.
So, on that note, I have been keeping up with like Sheev Talk's videos, and he's a big Star Wars guy, and he said that they brought Asajj Ventress back after she apparently died. What are you feeling? What are you feeling today, sir?
Well, that's the thing. Is she's appeared, spoilers again, if we didn't say this before, you should know this by now, with literally almost every single episode of this podcast, there's going to be spoilers. Asajj Ventress has appeared in the most recent series, or the most recent season of The Bad Batch, which is basically a Clone Wars continuum following a group of clones in the beginning stages of the Empire. And Asajj Ventress appears. And it has raised some controversy. She appeared for like 1 or 2 episodes. It's raised controversy because, again, Dark Disciple is canon. That's a book that, according to Disney and Kathleen Kennedy, is official. That actually happened. It's a part of the storyline. The issue is, very clearly, she is alive and kicking in The Bad Batch. Quite literally, she's kicking. So that has raised questions about, is she actually alive? Because she's a Night Sister, and as we see in Ahsoka, another Star Wars TV show, apparently the Night Sisters have the magic to bring dead people back to life. So is this actually Asajj Ventress? Or is it, maybe those weird Night Sister witches all the way out in the middle of nowhere space when they made zombie stormtroopers, maybe they accidentally, caused a shockwave that rippled across space and time and went back to Asajj Ventress and revived her. I don't know, man. I liked the way that she died in Dark Disciple, but I also, when I saw Ahsoka appear on screen in the Bad Batch trailer, I was a giddy little schoolboy, and I was yelling and very happy about it. So I'm torn.
Yeah, you are the in-between fan. You love Star Wars when it's good, and you really hate Star Wars when it's bad. And I think that's a good place to be.
Hey,
are you right? Am I? What? Sorry, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth.
You're 100% accurate. No. You're 100% accurate. I don't know if it's necessarily in the way that you're specifying it.
Okay, specify it.
When there's something that I like in Star Wars, I really like it. I will plant my flag and die on that hill. When there's something I don't like in Star Wars, I really don't like that. So this whole Asajj Ventress thing, Thrawn not being an absolute beast, hate that. But do I love that they brought Thrawn to live action? Yeah. Heck yeah. Dude's a monster. I hope he crushes the Marvelization of Star Wars. I hope that he wrecks house on that thing. I mean, you're not wrong. When there's stuff I like it. And when there's stuff I don't like, I absolutely hate it. Take that how you will.
It's just critiquing in general. Yeah. I think we'll get around to other aspects of each show, but I want to keep moving through a number of these names just because we've mostly talked about Mandalorian and a little bit Bad Batch, a little bit Ahsoka. But let's talk about Bad Batch. You're going to be filling me in on a lot of these because I haven't watched them. And I don't know how much you've watched, but I'm sure it's more than me. So I know the Bad Batch is kind of the few clone troopers who you're up to date. Okay. Which there's 3 seasons. So yeah, it's just, again, I kind of see it as a spin-off that I'm not saying spin-offs of spin-offs are bad because Andor was amazing, but it seems like the Star Wars thing to find a character and make an entire series or movie about them. That was the joke of many Star Wars parodies. Like Studio C did a skit about Star Wars branching off and making sure that they had a story about Chewbacca's cousin's girlfriend's dad. That's what Bad Batch is.
No, that's not what Bad Batch is.
Think about it. Obi-Wan in New Hope said, "I fought with your father in the Clone Wars." That had to be explained in the prequels. The prequels jumped the Clone Wars, and so they made a TV show in between 2 and 3. The TV show, Clone Troopers, that then became the Bad Batch, and the Bad Batch has now had 3 seasons. That is what it is, and you can't deny it.
It's all falling down in front of me. I mean,
got him.
Why would you put it in such a crystal clear manner? I liked it.
I'm sorry, man. It's true. I love Star Wars too, but it's
nope. I'm
true.
purging that from my mind. I'm purging it from my mind. I never heard that. Bad Batch is a wonderful TV show. I love the characters in it. I love the character growth and development.
No, actually, tell me about it. I know nothing except that they're clone troopers and they're like, they have their own thing. It's Tech. There's the big guy. I don't even know their names.
So yeah, you have the basic premise of it right. They're essentially a commando squad of clone troopers that were, what's the word? It's technically illegal in the modern world, but essentially they went into these clone troopers' brains and they messed with certain parts of them to try to get like beneficial results. So you have Hunter, who's like attuned to electromagnetic fields and like very, very sensitive to everything. He can hear something, he can feel change of wind, etc. You got Tech, who, as the name implies, is super techy. You have Wrecker, who's the big burly one, and you've got Crosshair, who's like the keen eye sharpshooter. Yeah, essentially, we follow them through the transitioning phases of Order 66 and the Empire phasing out clone troopers. And we went through a point where we saw the chips that caused Order 66 kind of take effect in some of the members of the Bad Batch, but that was kind of left in question. And then essentially Crosshair defects from the group because they try to save a Jedi. And it turns into a story of the other 3 trying to rescue Crosshair and Crosshair trying to play good soldier for the Empire. And along the way, they find a clone girl who's named Omega because she's supposedly the last clone ever made. And so the Empire wants Omega, and the 3 members of the batch are refusing to hand her over, so Crosshair gets sent after them. Long story short, they rescue Crosshair after going to Imperial jail for a little bit. Crosshair saw some stuff that happened which made him doubt the Empire also. And season 2 basically is just them hijinksing their way across the galaxy, trying to stay out of trouble, but also trying to help people and make some money on the side, trying to keep Omega safe and stuff. And in doing so, they stumble across a meeting of some pretty important Imperial officials, including Governor Tarkin. And essentially what happens is they're on a monorail system and they get attacked, and in order for the rest of the group to escape, Tech has to shoot the link in the monorail, and Tech falls to what we assume to be his death. But with Disney, as we've seen, there's if you don't see the body hacked up into 5 million different pieces, there's no guarantee that this person is dead. So season 3 is basically them trying to rescue Crosshair and Omega because they got captured, and that's where we're at now. Asajj Ventress shows up, kicks some clone butt, teaches Omega a trick or two, and then disappears again.
Thank you for that full synopsis of the Bad Batch.
You're welcome for the very brief, 7-minute recap of Bad Batch.
Really quick on Visions, going to Star Wars Visions. That was really interesting to me because of one reason and one reason only. I think Star Wars thrives in different media and different timelines. Because of how vast and big Star Wars, the story of Star Wars is, having something like Visions that is more anime style, that is very unique and can do its own thing instead of being just the Clone Wars style or live action. That's something that Star Wars thrives at, is being able to adjust genre and adjust style in how it tells its story very well. And that's the best part of being able to have such variety in how stories are told. And I think Marvel can do that, but I think Star Wars is best at it.
What I really liked about Visions, besides what you've said, is the way in which they're not refined to a single universe. It's an exploration into other options, really. I mean, you have a lightsaber that turns into an umbrella. I mean, that's awesome. You have dots that look like some painter was on an LSD trip and decided to paint it. Yeah, cool. Go for it. You've got what I thought at first was a cool little kid band that turns into a horror movie. Sure. It's also just a cool collaboration of different ideas. You have a studio that was it's like the one thing that Star Wars has ever given free rein to. You essentially told them, we don't care. It's not gonna be in the actual universe. It's just a fun little idea. Have at it. And you got some cool stuff that got turned out. It was so cool because they weren't constrained to anything. Like with other shows, you have, even with Star Wars, you have like people who are in charge who say it has to fall under this parameters. You can't have this character die, which makes sense. But when there's no barriers, some of the coolest stuff ever gets turned out.
And point that I made back in the Batman episode is talking about how animation can push a story to a level of
which
unrealism.
Batman episode? You mean the one where he's insistent he's not wearing hockey pants?
No one needs to know that I messed up.
I don't know how
okay?
you could have misheard that. I don't know how you could have misheard that.
For those who don't know and who are not on the Discord or didn't see the episode within the first 2 hours of it releasing, I put the title of the episode as I'm not wearing hockey pants.
I know hockey pads. What are hockey pants? Explain that to me.
Pants.
The dude is wearing hockey pads. He has a goalie chest protector on. Hockey pads.
He does. But I thought he was also wearing hockey pants, like goalie pants or other.
What are goalie pants? What are goalie pants?
There's no goalie pants.
What are hockey pants? It's hockey pads.
I know it is, but I'm arguing for past me.
That's what makes the scene so good.
You look up goalie pants, you look up hockey pants.
Mm-hmm.
They come up as hockey pants. They have like their pads and pants. They're pants in pads. I put the title of the episode.
I still don't understand.
I'm not wearing hockey pants.
That's so dumb for such a good scene.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm explaining to the listener. Shut up for a second.
Hockey pants? Hockey pads. So good. Anyway, and you're comparing something to the Batman episode.
The scene, if you listen to the scene, it sounds like he says pants.
I'm not wearing hockey pads. I'm not the one wearing hockey pads. He doesn't say pants. He says pads. We don't see the dude's legs. We see his chest with a chest protector on.
I'm saying I changed it. The title of the episode is now correct.
I have a screenshot of it. I will post the screenshot in the Discord.
Don't. Why? Do you not believe in forgiving and forgetting?
I do have a screenshot of it. Why? Because I found it so funny. It's so funny. Man, this is just a chaotic episode, isn't it? We still have to touch on Andor.
That I fixed a past problem, and I forgot. It says hockey pads.
Okay, the one that I'm seeing says hockey pants.
Update your Discord.
In updates, it still says hockey pants.
I will send you a screenshot right now.
Okay. Finish what you were saying. You were saying something about, like, the Batman episode.
In the Batman episode, I was talking about how animation is beneficial to some stories because, like with Batman, you don't need to explain every single piece of tech that he has in his tool belt. Whereas Christopher Nolan decided to go that route and explain how things worked. But when it comes to animation, it's a lot more lenient because you don't have that standard of realism that comes with live action. And so things like Visions is really good for exploring those things like a lightsaber umbrella and other visuals that just work as animation and wouldn't work as live action.
I do like what you said. I do like what you said about standard of realism. That's one of the things I think part of the reason why I probably really enjoy Bad Batch is because, I mean, with human actual actors, there's always that sense of you're kind of restrained to the laws of gravity and just the way that humans can act. And when you have animation like that, you can do a lot more. You can have characters flipping around like crazy because you're not reliant on the laws of gravity. It's just however the heck you want to animate it. And I'm sure, Seth, you probably have experience with that. You could probably just make an entire video of, I don't know, a little Yoda bouncing around a screen till it hits a corner and then everybody cheers. But I do like what you said about that.
Book of Boba Fett.
Mandalorian 2.5.
Mandalorian 2.5.
That
was such a weird move. Getting through half the season and then realizing the Mandalorian's here. Like, it's fine to have a crossover, but it wasn't even Boba's show. Like, there was one episode he doesn't have a single line just because it was so focused on the Mandalorian and Yoda, Baby Yoda, Grogu. And I still think that there was a bunch of pieces of it that was a cash grab, like bringing Cad Bane back. And I don't even know what they were doing with the mods bike scene, because that was so bad. I don't know how that got through anything, because
I don't think they knew what they were doing with that.
That's fair. At the very least, what we got out of something like the Book of Boba Fett was another example of a bad TV show, because that bike scene has been referenced by a lot of people saying at least it's not this bad, or it's this bad, or something like that. Yeah. The only good thing so there was two good things that I would say come out of it. With any bad show, at the very least, you can have the standard of, this is a bad show. Anything better than this, I will critique and enjoy to a certain extent. The second thing that came out of it that was really appreciated and good is the theme song, weirdly enough. It's kind of a bop. It's ba-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It kind of slaps. The floor is yours to talk about Boba Fett.
It was weird. I got excited at first because I was hoping we were going to be following Boba Fett's rise as a crime lord. I thought, with killing Bib Fortuna in the teaser at the end of Mandalorian, I thought we were going to potentially be getting a Mandalorian crime syndicate. That would have been so cool. Instead, we got Boba Fett cleaning up the streets, which, okay, I guess, kind of cool. He's trying to help people out. Doesn't really align with everything else about him, but good for him. And then the Mandalorian appeared. Okay, sure. And then we had Cad Bane, who did him dirty, Disney. Cad Bane was arguably the coolest Star Wars bounty hunter to ever exist, and you didn't make him great. But he still could be alive because Disney. But all in all, I wasn't too impressed by Book of Boba Fett. There were a couple of moments that kind of shocked me and that I was a little bit a fan of, but all in all, it wasn't a show. It's not a show that I would go back and rewatch. I've watched it once and I'm satisfied with that. My other gripe with Boba Fett is Cobb Vanth. Man, yeah. I called who it was. I watched the first time he showed up. I called out who he was. I was like, that's going to be Cobb Vanth, because he appeared in the Star Wars books Aftermath, which are also canon, and he had such a cool story too, where he was enslaved and he broke through the slavery and he stole Boba Fett's armor from his slavers, beat them all up, and now he's a good sheriff. And they made him in this story to be he's not good at all, and he's such a cool character in the Aftermath series. So I also have a gripe about that. They ruined Cobb Vanth, and they ruined Cad Bane even worse.
I think they butchered the character of Boba Fett. I think one of the most obvious ones is that Temuera Morrison is his age that he currently is, as though that needs to be stated. That's not the age that Boba Fett would be at that time period. So that's a little annoying, and they have done de-aging stuff in the past, or even recast it. Just recast him.
And if there's any of you who are your little comment people who want to try to disprove it, Boba Fett is a clone who is aging at the regular human rate. He's not aging at double rate. You can go back and you can watch Star Wars Episode 2, where it is stated one of Boba Fett's conditions was he has a son who ages at the natural rate. There you go.
Just because he played Jango Fett does not mean that he needs to play Boba Fett. And technically, the age that Jango was in Attack of the Clones should technically be the age that Boba Fett is in the Book of Boba Fett. That's like 25, 30 years difference, I think.
No. He's 41. Boba Fett is aged 41.
Is he?
Book of Boba Fett. Yes.
I suppose that could make sense. if he's like 10-ish in Attack of the Clones,
Jango Fett was 44. So you're actually right. He's pretty close.
but he looks way older. So that's just a visual gripe that I feel like they could have
That's
either recast or done something with prosthetics or made him de-aged, something like that. But yes, he became the mayor deputy, the mayor sheriff, and just kind of bossed people around. And it was not a fun show. It was the best when it wasn't about him. It was the best when it was about the Mandalorian instead of about Boba Fett. So that's that. Obi-Wan Kenobi could have been really good and should have been a movie. It's one of those things where for the Hobbit episode that's coming up. So we've done the 2 Lord of the Rings episodes, and we're going to be doing a Hobbit episode. My sister sent me a fan edit of the Hobbit movies. So instead of all 3 movies in the trilogy being as long as they are, they cut them down to about the length of what the Hobbit story was. That's what they should do with Obi-Wan Kenobi. They should, even that, I don't think that would save it. Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been a movie that was a lot shorter and could have hit some of the similar beats, even though it should have just been rewritten from the start.
It was originally written to be a movie, and then somebody in Disney went, you know what? I think this would work better as a TV show. I was excited for it. I love Ewan McGregor. They brought Ewan back. They brought Hayden Christensen back. I think it would have been so good as a movie. Instead, it was a TV show, and it kind of fell flat. It wasn't spectacular. It could have been so good, and instead it just didn't turn out. And it was disappointing. It was, I mean, again, there were cool beats about it. We got Quinlan Vos mentioned, which I loved. We had a pretty cool fight between Hayden and Ewan. And there were still some good scenes. But it was, it fell flat. The good parts of it couldn't make up for the rest of the show. And even the casting that they had couldn't make up for it. It wasn't great, in my opinion.
It's a good way to put it. The best parts were not enough to cover up the flaws. I think immediately of Leia running through the forest away from the bad guys, like how she was able to outrun all of them. Obi-Wan sneaking Leia out of the Empire building.
Leia running through the forest and that whole scene reminds me of me and my younger sister, the middle child, chasing around our youngest sister when she was like 5 or 6 and pretending to try to get her and diving tackles that we completely whiffed on purpose and running into each other. That's what it felt like. It felt like they told the Leia actress, hey, you're going to run through the woods. There's going to be these big bad people chasing you. You better make sure they don't catch you. And then they went up to the actors and they said, chase her, try to catch her, but don't actually catch her. And they were like, okay, I got it. And then they're tripping over nothing. They're making pointless diving grabs. It kind of looked like a video game, how they couldn't pass over a downed tree. Oh my gosh, it's so hard, man. You gotta find your way around that thing.
I remember there was a shot in the Leia chase scene where one of the guys just runs chest first into a log.
Yes!
As though he didn't see it, and he's like...
So, youngest sister, if you're watching this, I hope you didn't think you were actually faster than us. I don't know if this is like Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, Santa Claus stuff.
Tooth Fairy is real, guys.
I hope this isn't gonna be crashing too hard on you. It was 100% fake. You were never faster than us.
Have you ever heard the stories that are like, pastor at a youth conference is using an example for his sermon, and he mentions like, because the Tooth Fairy isn't real, and some 6th grader who's in middle school is like,
Yep, I've watched that happen. That's fun.
I was at one with my old youth group that my youngest brother is in right now, and they were kind of talking about, referencing Birds and the Bees and stuff like that in dating. And Luke was like, there are definitely some kids who are homeschooled in our group who have no idea what sex is.
No clue what the birds
even though they're like 6th grade.
They're like, what's with bees and birds? What's going on with them? Okay, so we're finishing up with Kenobi.
Yes. Here's the thing about the final fight. It was almost good. It had a lot of aspects to it that were good, but it was so freaking dark. It didn't look good. It was supposed to, a lot of the lightsaber fights in Kenobi were meant to be, oh, look, now our lightsabers illuminate back on the person, because they didn't even do that really in the prequels. They did it in the sequels, and then they did it for the prequel characters, Obi-Wan and Anakin, in this new show. So they were kind of showing that off, but it just kind of looked blurry and gross. And it's similar to the complaint that I have when fight scenes are so cropped in or cut up so quick. It's meant to hide bad choreography, and that's not cool. It's just, I think Jason Bourne was really known for this, is that it was so choppy and so motion blur-y that you couldn't tell what's going on. It's the same thing with the lightsabers that make light.
You shouldn't have to do that with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. They filmed the Mustafar fight scene. You shouldn't have to try to cover it up.
Yeah. No, I know that those fight scenes were set in the dark so that they could show off the lightsabers twirling, but it just looked gross, and it would have been a lot better if it was light. And then there's people who are talking about like Obi-Wan going all Kamehameha with the rocks. I don't know. There's a lot of Star Wars purists who are mad, Star Wars aficionados who will say it's fine. I don't know.
I'm going to choose the stuff that I like, and I'm going to die on that hill. I like the fight. Were there flaws to it? Yes. Am I going to overlook them because I got Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor fighting again? 100%. It's a good fight.
So then I'm not going to send you the video of an actual swordsman breaking down every single flaw in that fight, where they have their entire backs turned to a lightsaber that could just cut them in half with one swing, because they're not actually fighting to kill, they're fighting to dance.
Ignorance is bliss.
That's the modern Star Wars that we have today.
But yes, you are 100% right about that. They're fighting to dance, they're not fighting to kill. That's probably part of the reason why the Mustafar fight scene was so good, because they looked like they wanted to kill each other. Anyway, absolutely. And now we have dancing, which... That's part of it is, in a lot of the books, it's described as a dance. A fight between a Jedi and a Sith Master are supposed to be dances. A dance of death. They try too hard with that, and it just turns into a dance with flourishy sticks.
To finish off Kenobi, I think we have a lot of Force healing and insignificance of death. First off, you know that Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan, and Darth Vader are going to make it out alive. That's what you deal with when you write stories in between other stories. However, Reva getting stabbed twice as a child and as an adult, the Grand Inquisitor getting stabbed once, all of them being fine, I don't get it. Pick a side, pick a lane. Are lightsabers a danger? Or are they just fancy sticks that you swing at people and give them a little ouchie?
I'm just going to say Qui-Gon Jinn missed out by a day, man. If he could have survived one more day, we wouldn't have this whole galactic war. That's all I'm going to say. Qui-Gon Jinn missed out, man. He's rolling over in his grave because he's so upset. His Force ghost is upset.
Have you seen the videos of people doing deep fakes of themselves pretending to be? Yeah, he's like reacting. He's like, "What the frick, Obi-Wan?"
Yeah, I know.
What the frick? You couldn't figure that out? I can't do that. I can't do a Liam Neeson voice.
I don't even want to try him.
There's plenty of content on Obi-Wan and breaking it down, how bad it is. There are some good parts, but they're few and far between and don't make up for the rest of it.
Speaking of people getting stabbed and surviving, we're going to have to address another elephant in the room in the form of Ahsoka. And I will kid you not, my dad, my sisters, and I were watching Ahsoka, and in that very first episode, Sabine Wren gets stabbed in the stomach. And I paused it, and I turned to them, and I said, if she comes back next episode, perfectly fine, after getting stabbed through the stomach with a lightsaber, I'm going to be upset. And the next week, we watch it, and she wakes up, and she's just fine, and I was very upset. And even they were like, this makes no sense. So, what the heck? Also, when you keep putting the pen up to your mouth, it kind of looks like you're ripping a vape.
How do you know I'm not?
I don't. It's legal now. Is that your weed pen? It's not legal, actually. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's not legal because it's a controlled substance.
It's not. It's just a pen.
I know. Hey, I have one too.
I'm not doing drugs. Oh, you have the exact same one?
I have one too.
Hey,
yeah.
Let's go.
Is yours
I take it apart
too?
Because it's a fidget.
Is yours silver too?
Yeah.
Cool. I got it.
Okay, this is the part after Andor, which we're not talking about Andor because we had 2 full episodes on Andor.
I'd still talk on Andor constantly.
I know. Go listen to those 2 episodes. They're pretty good. The Ahsoka show is a lot of women standing around looking bored with their arms crossed. Tell me I'm wrong.
It's a lot of people standing around looking bored.
People, yes. But it's also mainly Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hera, I believe. And the witch lady. There's Thrawn too, and Ezra shows up at the end. But I feel like everyone's just bored. Everyone's just not really excited to be there. They're supposed to be looking tough. I think that's what they were going for. They're supposed to look tough and like nothing bothers them. That's not how you write strong characters, is just having them do this all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you. Every time Ahsoka did that, I was like, wow, she looks like she has no care in the world, right? She is there to be there. I mean, I honestly think my dad, who isn't a huge Star Wars fan, put it really well especially in terms of Sabine, when he said it kind of just feels like they're all whining. It's a whiny TV show. Everybody's upset about something and nobody really wants to take any action about it. Everyone's just, oh no, this happened. Ah.
It's basically a continuation of Rebels in live action because there are so many Rebels characters.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? And you've seen Rebels, I have.
I have seen Rebels. I loved Rebels. I thought it was so cool.
Uh-huh.
What I loved about it was they took a cast and a planet that nobody has ever heard of, and kind of like Visions, they had free reign with it. I mean, they had some constraints because it had to be the Empire, but they could kind of do what they wanted with it. They could create the story that they wanted, and they created an awesome story with it. And when it was said in Ahsoka that it would be following the cast of some of the Rebels characters, it made me excited again. I was like, oh, this is a cool cast. They have some great moments. They have, at least in Rebels, they had great chemistry with each other. I was intrigued to see how it would go. I don't even want to say it's a continuation of Rebels because Rebels was cool and this one was meh. Rebels was awesome, and this just ended up being like it's a Star Wars TV show, man. It's not. They had Ezra Bridger, awesome character development at the end of Rebels, and they threw that away. They had Thrawn. I could go on about Thrawn. I love Thrawn so much. I was so excited. But he was one of the greatest villains ever written. And it wasn't because he was Force sensitive. It was just because he was so gosh darn smart and he understood everybody. He had Vader scared of him. But they turned it from, a guy who had Vader and the Emperor terrified of him to a nobody. You could take Thrawn out of that and you could put any Imperial commanding officer and it wouldn't be any different. You would have, yes, my plan is almost complete. We have almost finished loading the ship. Take care of them. That is an acceptable loss. That's not Thrawn. Thrawn is throwing 2 TIE fighters at you, and based off of those 2, he knows exactly how your entire fleet is going to show up, and he obliterates them the moment they exit hyperspace. He's a genius tactician, and this just looked like he put a 4-year-old at the controls and said, you have all of these people, and if they die, no big deal. It was dumb. It made me upset. They took Ahsoka, who is also an awesome character, and turned her into a whiny mess.
I think a lot of directors nowadays seem to come out after the movie releases and say, yeah, I didn't read the source material. I didn't know anything about them. I just know that they're a character that kind of has these qualities. I feel like that's been a Marvel thing and a Star Wars thing recently. It just seems like part of me wants to say that they're not being hired because they can do a good job, but because they're diverse. And I'll leave that at that. That is what Disney has openly said about their hiring process. I don't necessarily mind that as long as they know the source material. It doesn't seem like they give a crap because they got the job and they need to get that paycheck. They're not going to, there's no incentive to do it well, I feel.
And it's not even like it was George Lucas who came up with Thrawn. It was Timothy Zahn, an author, who came up with Thrawn in what is now Legends. And then it was loved so much that he brought it back as canon in 2 separate trilogies. And yet there's so much source material to go for. 9 books worth of source material. And they had Rebels, which was very accurate to book Thrawn. None of the losses Thrawn suffered in Rebels were his fault. He's so good. And instead, it's just... I mean, I'm seeing some articles where people are like, he's so much better in live action. I mean, again, you can be entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. And I'll plant my flag and stand on my hill and die on this hill that I think it wasn't as good. Use the material you have. You can create your own when there are gaps or in cases where, the creator of the source material is like, I don't really know. I don't really care. It could have been so much better.
I think the only other thing I wanted to bring up about Ahsoka was the zombie stormtroopers. Everyone loved the finale of Ahsoka, right? Right?
you took Ezra, who is a great character, and turned him into a pacifist. Ezra was never a pacifist. You have zombie stormtrooper, which has some legends source to it in terms of zombie stormtroopers, not in this specific way, but the way that it was executed was interesting. Again, I don't know if I necessarily hate the zombie stormtroopers. I just think the execution of them was like, what's the goal here? You're creating action for action's sake. You're not creating action to tell a story.
They are all about the moment. They have ideas that they want to include in different aspects of these movies. And they will include them in whatever jumbled up way they want. I remember it came out, there was like a behind the scenes video of the Disney executives talking about what the future of Star Wars looked like. And they had dinosaurs, they had zombies. We got dinosaurs in Mandalorian season 3. We got zombies in Ahsoka season 1. They got what they wanted. It just doesn't make any sense.
You could put it in so much better.
I know, but they have this dartboard of things that they want, and they're like, all right, for Ahsoka, we're going to get zombie, stormtroopers.
Well, I mean, and even with the zombie stormtroopers, they went back to the source material for that. They had Night Sisters, and they went back and they looked, and they were like, oh, Night Sisters do this. We have previous evidence stating they can resurrect corpses. Oh,
so close.
We have previous source materials stating they can do this. They went back for that, but they wouldn't go back for Thrawn. But yes, I agree. It's like they have two dartboards with content, and yeah, they're like, we're gonna go there and there. Zombie stormtroopers. All right. I can live with that. What's it gonna be next for Skeleton Crew or whatever acolyte?
Vampire droids.
Ooh. Do they suck oil instead of blood? They have little mini lightsaber teeth that they. Ooh.
I will bring this up. We didn't talk about this when we were talking about Mandalorian. There was a whole episode basically on droid suffrage. Do you remember that? They were talking about droids being enslaved and how that was so mean of them. And people had a field day. There's been a lot of video essays talking about how droids are not humans. Disney really wants to make droids humans and just a different type of species. When in reality, they are the Tesla bots. They are the Boston Dynamics robots that have no feelings, so you can be mean to it. Not that you should, but the whole droid suffrage, the solo droid who was with Lando, among others, are treated with such high respect than they should be, and how George Lucas treated them as just helpers, as AI, as we would call it now, and that's not their place. That's not how it works, and I think they're wrong in doing that.
Yeah, you're hitting not necessarily a touchy subject, but a subject that does cause division. And it's interesting because I do see where you're coming from, but I don't want to brag about, I don't want it to sound like I'm bragging. I just have more experience in the Star Wars universe. But there are points where they are servants. That's what they're designed for. C-3PO is designed to be a servant. R2-D2 is designed to be a servant. You have some droids that are autonomous and are freely thinking. Yes. You have entire droid revolutions where the droids run their own society. Yes. I don't know if it's necessarily something that Star Wars needs to make such a huge deal out of. I think if they just if Star Wars says in the next TV show, if they say we're going to a planet where humans are slaves to droids, where sentient beings are slaves to droids, people will be like, oh, this is interesting. How did we get here? I don't think people are going to be up in arms about free the humans or droids' rights. It's a fantasy universe that we're trying to apply real world issues to. And not even real world issues that are very, very touchy, that you have huge divides on. It's a fantasy universe. The authors, as we've established, the authors can do whatever the heck they want, regardless of if we like it or not. Our opinion apparently doesn't make a difference. So we can be upset about it all we want. I don't think it's going to matter.
It is kind of dumb to get offended at small things like that. But I think as we wrap it up, and I know we can maybe touch on the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew here in a second, but the reason so many people are frustrated that with the different turns Star Wars takes, whether it's a minor nitpick or a major plot point, I think it's because these fans had an experience when they were little, probably watching the original trilogy, maybe the prequels if they were unfortunate enough to have that be their first experience.
Clone Wars if you're our age.
Yeah, having such good movies then, knowing that they're in the same universe, you want the same feeling, the same nostalgia, and some of that is kind of replicated with some nostalgia baiting throughout the shows, but you want the same feeling as you did with those old movies, which I don't think you'll ever get. Andor was good, but I don't think it was original trilogy good. And so we care so much because those originals were so good. And we want them to continue doing good things, even though it seems like they have decided it doesn't matter anymore. That's all I'm saying. Acolyte has actually been confirmed.
Yep. Acolyte has a trailer out.
Acolyte has a trailer. One of the best things about that trailer is the Jedi Master going,
Close your eyes.
and the one bug-eyed alien is like, I can't, I don't have eyelids.
What I really loved about the trailer was they had every 7-year-old at the doors to a supermarket where you can quite clearly see, go watch the trailer, you can quite clearly see it's doors that are designed to part. They're designed like our automatic doors to part apart. And there's a Jedi Master standing on the other side with her arm out, and she's like motioning it aside. It's like every 7-year-old. It is the funniest thing.
The funnier part is that I thought it was earlier because there's a character walking through automatic doors and she didn't have her hand up. I was like, was that it? But no, those were automatic doors.
Nope.
But these are not automatic. There's a control panel right next to it.
She's a 7-year-old using the Force to open automatic doors. It didn't open fast enough, man.
What if the plot point is just that she's pretending to be a Jedi and she's just like, look at me, I have the Force, and then they're like, that's an automatic door, lady. That could be the plot point. I would not be surprised.
That would be funny. My other thing with the Acolyte is I was excited because the way that Disney had phrased everything was I thought we were going to be following the bad guys through it. I thought we were going to be following the evil people. So I was really excited because I was like, this is cool, this is different. We're seeing a different side of it. And instead, we're following the good guys again. And it's looking like even just reading the descriptions of some of the episodes, it's not looking like it's going to be super interesting. I'm holding hope. I hope it's super interesting because it's High Republic era, so it's before everything we've already seen on screen. So they kind of have free reign with it. I hope it's good. I'm not gonna have the bar set super high. It's got to beat Kenobi. It's got to beat Boba Fett or Kenobi. It can't be the worst.
I think people have been wanting such a time change in some sort of media, whether it's TV show or movie, because we need to get away from the Skywalker saga for a bit. With what they did with the sequels, I believe they need to depart from that era for a while. And yet I think they're going to try and figure out how to connect the Acolyte to the Skywalker saga, as though there's going to be a character, she's going to be pregnant, and say, oh, what's the baby's name? It's going to be Shmi, or something like that. That could be a genuine connection that they try and make.
Disney. There's no way any person who works for Disney is listening to this. I'm going to throw this out there. There has been time travel in Star Wars before, and it has been roughly this era. It was the Great Sith War with lightsabers that still had to be connected to the belt, got thrown into Old Republic era. Disney, for the love of all things good, please don't. That is the one thing I'm content to leave in Legends. That deserves to stay there. Please don't try to bring that here. The one exception to that is if it means you revert back to George Lucas's original idea for after the original trilogy.
So you're saying the only time travel is allowed is if they wipe the sequels off the face of the planet, pretend they don't exist, they're not canon, and start the sequels over from scratch.
Yep, go to the Yuzhang Vong. Yep, that's the only reason I would accept time travel.
I think that, and I know there's time travel in Rebels. You're probably okay with that as well.
Yep. That's different with the World Between Worlds, and we go there in Ahsoka as well. That one was cleared by George, so there's not much I can do about that. I'm addressing Disney. and I'm saying Disney, this is the only time I think you should ever do time travel. And even with that, it was weird, and I wasn't a huge fan of it, but George cleared it, so there's not much I can say when the creator goes, yeah, this is good.
We also gotta ease up on pretending that all of George Lucas's ideas are good. He did write your favorite character in the prequel trilogy to talk like a Misa.
Yes, he did. Was it a mistake? Yes, 100%. And I agree. He's the creator and he will make mistakes. I'm saying I'm not a huge fan of the World Between Worlds. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I wasn't a huge fan of it. But it's there. Can't really change that now. Just like I can't change the whole lightsaber stabbing, not killing anybody. I'm saying if Disney listens to their fans, I don't think they should ever bring time travel back unless they're going to bring out the Yu Zhang War and wipe the slate clean. Will it ever happen? Almost guaranteed not. But it'd be cool.
Disney knows which fans they're making it for. And it's not us. It's not us who want Star Wars to continue to be good. It's the fans who show up to Comic-Con. Everyone has a lightsaber. Everyone is in cosplay. And whenever there's a panel with any sort of actor, they cheer at every single thing they say because they're some sort of god. Those are the crazies who I never want to be associated with. And they're the people who are liking this content.
Well, I like some of the content that they have. Again, I loved Andor, loved Visions, loved Bad
I'm a little
Batch.
bit more critical. I'm sorry.
You know, and that's fine. But I'd love to try to go to Comic-Con at some point. It sounds like a fun experience.
Is it Comic-Con or is it called something different for Star Wars?
I think I don't know. I don't remember. Regardless,
Cosmic Con?
No, San Diego Comic-Con, I'm pretty sure. Regardless, I'm not, as you said, I don't think the target audience of any of the new Star Wars content. Maybe Andor. We might be the target audience for Andor and probably Bad Batch because that's our era.
I don't think Andor can be counted with all of the rest of it because all of the rest of them are good or lower. Andor exceeds that, and that shows that it's the outstander. It doesn't relate to any of the other ones.
It's the outlier.
So I wonder if Star Wars is going to have the same reckoning that Marvel is having. There are no Marvel movies this year. There are a few spin-off TV shows that are in the works and will kind of be released. Deadpool kind of counts, but I'm just saying they have announced that they are putting a hold on a lot of things to try and reevaluate because they realized that stuff that they were doing was not working after Quantumania, after Captain Marvel, or the Marvels, things like that. I hope Star Wars gets to a point, and maybe Acolyte will turn out to be good. I don't know. Probably not.
Again, I hope Acolyte turns out good. Again, I agree with you. I don't think it will. And I hope Star Wars does that same thing. We went, 20, 30 years without any major new Star Wars thing other than Clone Wars.
Between when?
Between episode 3 and we had 2 separate iterations of Clone Wars, but even Clone Wars wasn't loved by everybody. And that it was released on Disney, on the Disney Channel and Disney XD, so very few people got to see it.
The Revenge of the Sith was 2005 and The Force Awakens was 2015.
Really? It was only 10 years.
So if you're counting sequels, there's only a 10-year gap between The Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens.
Was released during my lifespan? Huh.
Yes, sir. 2005.
I stand corrected.
May 19th, 2005.
I stand corrected. Regardless, there was still that 10-year span. I hope they take another span. I love Star Wars content. I hope they take another break in it so that they can reevaluate it. Maybe it gets sold to somebody else. Unlikely. But maybe it does.
Not happening.
You're saying the same thing Marvel is going to do with the break. I hope they do that. I mean, we're not going to get another Star Wars thing other than Andor in 2025.
I don't think they've announced past Skeleton Crew what they're doing, and it's always been up in the air what Star Wars is actually going to come out. I totally agree that they should take another break, but this is the era to make money. As soon as streaming services became mainstream, it's off the books taking a break from any sort of money-making ways, movies, shows, anything. I don't think anything that isn't already mainstream, like Indiana Jones has had their reboots twice. Reboots, legacy sequels, whatever. Star Wars is back making content. Even old kids' TV shows like iCarly are having reboots and continuing those stories just for money.
Really?
Do you know that?
It's been dead forever.
I know. But those types of things, it's ways to make money, it's ways to bait nostalgia, and it's working. But in a way that is not, I would say, not morally, but it just seems so insincere. Let's finish off with Skeleton Crew. You say it's canceled, but Wikipedia, the source of all good, true knowledge and information, says that it's coming out later this year or early next year.
Yeah,
What news do you have? What inside source do you know?
Unfortunately, I don't have an inside source in Disney. I wish I did. I could have sworn it was. No, I guess it's still going. Yeah, I guess it was just.
I don't even know what it's about.
Yeah, they've been very closed mouth about it. That might be why I thought it was cut. It was because they've been so closed mouth about it. It's got Jude Law in it.
Yeah. It's about 4 children who make a discovery on their home planet, get lost in the galaxy, and go on an adventure to get back home. Could this be the payoff to that kid at the end of Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, whichever one it was? Oh, it was The Last Jedi because it was a kid in Canto Bight. Force pulled a broom and was never spoken of again.
I mean, we hate it when
it's not.
We've stated we hate it when there's people who are just barely hinted at and now a huge backstory is made about them. But they made such a huge deal about it. And yeah, we never saw them again.
The only problem is that it says it's happening, or it is in the same time frame as The Mandalorian. So it wouldn't
Marvelization.
Quite be...
Are they going to be the ones who show up to save the day from evil Thrawn and his witches? I hope Skeleton Crew is good too. It sounds like we'll be getting that soon, hopefully. I don't know barely anything about it, but I hope it turns out good too.
I only hope in the Lord Jesus Christ. But if I had to hope in a Star Wars movie or show, I would hope in Andor Part 2, because that one is the only thing that I actually care to see again. I don't even think I'll try and see the Acolyte or Skeleton Crew. Both Marvel and Star Wars, I'm starting to just... It's okay if I don't see them. There's much better things I could be watching or doing, like this podcast.
That's fair. I just enjoy Star Wars too much, I think. Unless Star Wars does something completely out of left field, and that's the whole point. I'm sucked into Disney's trap, which is the issue. I'm too big a fan to back out now. Love it too much.
I'm too big a fan to indulge in that. And so...
We have two different fans here.
Honestly.
Yeah, I gotcha.
No, honestly, anything that's not Andor that was produced after Disney bought Star Wars just makes me think I wish I was watching any of the prequels or original trilogy. Even the prequels. I know you kind of have a lower view of the prequels than I do. I still love them, and I know you like them to a certain degree. Those 6 movies are way better than any of the stuff that Disney has put out under the Star 100%. Wars theme, except for Andor, which... Andor was an outlier because it was kind of given to the director and he ran with it full sprint into what he thought was best, and that was great. Disney almost had no hand with that, and it's so weird that the connection between Andor and Disney, because Disney kind of put Andor on the back burner even when it was thriving. Yeah. When the finale released, it wasn't on the front page of Disney Plus. That was so weird. It's so weird.
Another thing that I think Disney did pretty good with was, and we'll talk about this whenever we talk about Clone Wars, but season 7 of Clone Wars. The latter half of it was awesome. But that's a discussion for another time.
I would say that's because they had a ball lobbed to them and they actually hit it out of the park. Instead of all the other balls that were lobbed to them, and they were like, what's a ball?
I'm going to give you a nice, easy meatball. Here you go. Huh? Dodgeball? Okay. Swish. Did I do it right?
Catches it and runs down the field. Down.
Oh, gosh. Well,
this has been a long episode, but it's been good.
It's been a pleasure working with you, Seth.
Okay, this is just a place to rant. It's a free space. It's a safe space for us to rant, process our feelings, and so is our Discord that you should join.
Yeah, 100%. Let's be real, Seth. Our last 3 episodes that you and I have done, this, Disney trilogy, prequel trilogy. The thing those 3 all have in common other than Star Wars? Ranting. My last 3 episodes with you have just been me ranting. I appreciate it a lot.
Hey, you did How to Train Your Dragon too.
Oh, that was in there? Okay, never mind. 4.
No, I get what you're saying.
3 of the last 4 have been me ranting. Yeah. Watch How to Train Your Dragon. Good movie. Good series.
Yes, it is.
Good for
yeah.
Not touched by Disney.
Remember, I killed our TikTok. Don't follow us over there. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube and join our Discord. And then like us wherever you're listening. Till you next week. Know that you're loved. God bless.
God bless. See ya.
You haven't come up with a catchphrase yet?
No, I really should. Here, let me think of one real quick. I have the book right here. It's very well worn. Look at that. Very well worn. We could go with that one. How hard is that to say? That's kind of hard to say. Hold on. This is taking me longer than I thought. Shoot. He doesn't have pronunciations in here. Hold on. Give me a second. Hold on. Fine. All right. We'll go with that one. Gosh, this is going to be hard. Se ono wise Ilya. I definitely butchered that. There you go. You can edit that one in. Se ono... Oh, wait. Hold on. I said it once and forgot it. Hold on.
I've been holding on.
Se ono wise Ilya. See you guys. There you go. Have that one.
What is that?
I don't know if you can read it.
I can read it. Is it okay? It's a glossary.
May you be happy. It was either that or may your sword stay sharp.
Oh, it's a book series. Okay.
Oh yeah, my favorite book series ever. And you know what? We'll get to talk about it because it's being turned into a TV show by Disney.
Okay. Thank you for that.